Welcome back to another episode of SNEED-CAST Industry Update, your go-to source for staying sharp in a fast-moving world of manufacturing, packaging, coding, and beyond. Let's get into what's making headlines this week. I'm your host Alexa, and today we'll discuss topics ranging from practical strategies for advancing sustainability in manufacturing to Kraft Heinz' major decision to split into two companies, the U.S. Supreme Court's expedited hearing on Trump's sweeping tariffs, and the Trump administration's latest Make America Healthy Again report prioritizing vaccine injury investigations and public health reforms. Executives from Conagra Brands, Mars Wrigley, and Sterling Contract Packaging shared practical strategies for advancing sustainability at the PMMI Executive Leadership Conference. June Prenesti, Conagra's SVP of Engineering, highlighted the company's rigorous approach. We map out every plant's footprint, Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions, and evaluate every investment against its contribution to our SBTI, Science-Based Targets Initiative goals. Mars Wrigley's Laura Shimon described the company's Sustainable and Generation Plan targeting a 50% carbon reduction by 2030 and net zero by 2050, with a focus on making all new technology circular ready to accommodate recyclable or compostable packaging. Michael Collins of Sterling Contract Packaging noted that even seemingly simple material shifts require months of co-development and testing, stressing there needs to be buy-in from the brand too. Panelists agreed that verified data and close OEM collaboration are now expected. Shimon said, "We're not just looking for data or specs, we need to see evidence, case studies, test results." Prenesti added, "We want to upgrade efficiency and reduce emissions rather than make simple equipment swaps." The discussion also tackled the looming impact of extended producer responsibility (EPR) laws in 5 U.S. states, with Prenesti warning this is going to hit the balance sheets, especially given the patchwork of state regulations and the need for rigorous third-party evaluations. Mars's Shimon cautioned the non-compliance with tougher European regulations could bar products from markets entirely. Panelists advocated for a revised ROI lens. A standard ROI project might need a 20% return. For sustainability projects, we're comfortable with 10 to 12%, Prenesti explained, emphasizing long-term value. As sustainability becomes integral to procurement, packaging, and operations, the panel urged OEMs to stay ahead by collaborating on material trials, providing digital training resources, and preparing for increasingly stringent requirements worldwide. Kraft Heinz has announced it will split into two separate companies a decade after the merger that created one of the world's largest food conglomerates. The decision comes as the company continues to navigate changing consumer preferences, noting persistent headwinds in adapting its historic brands to modern health-conscious trends. The move follows a strategic review initiated in May of 2025, with company leadership acknowledging that the current structure hampers the ability to allocate capital efficiently, prioritize growth initiatives, and drive innovation across diverse brand portfolios. One new entity, currently called Global Taste Elevation Co., will include iconic brands such as Heinz Ketchup, Philadelphia Cream Cheese, and Kraft Mac and Cheese products with strong global appeal and potential for international expansion. The other entity, North American Grocery Co., will manage staple brands like Oscar Mayer, Kraft Singles, and Lunchables, focusing on the core U.S. and Canadian grocery markets and adapting established product lines to evolving retail dynamics. Executive Chair Miguel Patricio stated, "Kraft Heinz brands are iconic and beloved, but the complexity of our current structure makes it challenging to allocate capital effectively, prioritize initiatives, and drive scale in our most promising areas." This restructuring, Patricio suggested, is a critical step to unlock value and sharpen the company's competitive focus. The origins of the combined company trace back to 2013, when Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway and Brazilian private equity firm 3G Capital acquired H.J. Heinz Co. for $23 billion, the era's largest food industry deal. They subsequently facilitated Kraft's search for a strategic partner, culminating in the 2015 mega merger that assembled powerhouse brands under one roof, seeking to boost margins through scale and strict cost controls. However, Kraft Heinz struggled to respond as consumer habits shifted rapidly toward fresher, less processed foods, and as competition intensified from lower-priced store brands. Despite efforts to trim expenses such as significant layoffs and divesting businesses including Planters Nuts and its natural cheese line, the company continued to lose market share, and net revenue has declined every year since a pandemic-driven spike in 2020. In 2019, Kraft Heinz took a $15.4 billion write-down on the value of its Oscar Mayer and Kraft brands, reflecting operational and supply chain challenges. Investors and analysts often pointed to a lack of innovation and the adverse impacts of aggressive cost-cutting. As the company now separates, Carlos Abrams-Rivera will remain CEO of Kraft Heinz and lead North American Grocery Co., guiding its effort to adapt legacy brands for the future grocery market. A search is underway for a CEO to helm Global Taste Elevation Co., which is expected to pursue growth through global category leadership and product development. Both companies will retain Kraft Heinz' existing headquarters in Chicago and Pittsburgh. The landmark separation is planned for completion in the second half of 2026, signaling a major transformation of the company as it seeks to respond decisively to changing market demands and unlock long-term shareholder value. The U.S. Supreme... Okay.
Sorry to barge in, but it is our 3 years today. Me, Quentin, and Alexa.
Yeah, cute. Even though you're behind the camera.
I'm not going to be on camera. Cameraman's not showing his face, but hey, it's our 3 years today.
Happy 3 years. Okay.
Start at the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Thanks, John. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. The U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to an unusually fast-tracked hearing on President Donald Trump's sweeping tariff, scheduling oral arguments for November of 2025, a notably rapid timeline by the court's standards. This case comes after two lower courts found most of Trump's tariffs illegal but allowed them to remain in effect pending appeal. The tariffs in question were announced in February and April and levied on imports from Canada, China, and Mexico under the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act, known as IEEPA, which allows the president to restrict imports during declared emergencies. The challenge was brought by small businesses and states who argued these emergency powers were overused, endangering their businesses and violating the Constitution's assignment of tariff authority to Congress. Attorney Jeffrey Schwab of the Liberty Justice Center emphasized, Congress, not the president alone, has the power to impose tariffs. The Trump administration, represented by Solicitor General D. John Sauer, responded that overturning the tariffs could prompt the brink of economic catastrophe, potentially requiring the U.S. Treasury to refund up to $159 billion in collected import duties as of late August and undermining U.S. leverage in trade negotiations and national security priorities, including efforts to restrict fentanyl and to pressure Russia regarding its war on Ukraine. The case will test how expansively the Supreme Court interprets presidential authority under the IEEPA, especially given that 3 current justices were nominated by Trump. Some appeal court judges ruled that the IEEPA authorizes the president to regulate imports during emergencies without explicit congressional consent, yet others disagreed, widening the importance of the ruling. While Trump's tariffs were enacted using claimed emergency powers, the court's decision is expected to set a significant precedent affecting executive power, future trade policy, and supply chain costs. The tariffs, worth $159 billion in revenue for the U.S. by late August, will remain active until the court issues its decision. The outcome is being closely monitored by policymakers, businesses, and international partners for its profound implications on U.S. economic and legal frameworks. The Trump administration has released its latest Make America Healthy Again report, directing public health and environmental agencies to prioritize investigations into vaccine injuries, prescription drug use, and the causes of autism. Overseen by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the 20-page report calls for more rigorous government investigation into vaccine injuries, a proposal that has already sparked controversy. Kennedy announced he would recast the entire program for investigating vaccine injuries, stating, "They will be welcomed and we will learn everything we can about them so we can improve the safety of these products." This move comes amid turmoil at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, where Kennedy's anti-vaccine policies reportedly led to the firing of his hand-picked director and the departure of other top leaders. A bipartisan group of senators has since raised alarms over his leadership. Dr. Susan J. Cressley, president of the American Academy of Pediatrics, criticized the report, stating, "It lacks details on how the administration plans to address those issues and omits key drivers that harm children's health, including gun violence and environmental hazards." The report also recommends that the National Institute of Health, the NIH, use personal medical records and health insurance claims data to investigate the causes of chronic diseases, including autism. This rules Kennedy's months-long promise to unveil the cause of the complex developmental disorder. Additionally, the report calls for increased enforcement against misleading pharmaceutical ads, particularly those from social media influencers and telehealth companies. President Trump has already signed a memorandum to begin this process. The following episode of SNEED-CAST Industry Update was brought to you by our SNEEDJet ST301 black ink. The ST301 is our fastest drying black ink for the Titan series printers, offering superior adhesion and excellent performance on both porous and non-porous substrates. With a dry time ranging from instant to just a few seconds, the ST301 ensures efficient and reliable marking even in challenging applications and environmental conditions. That's it for this week's episode of SNEED-CAST Industry Update, but the conversation doesn't stop here. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell down below to stay up to date with all of our great updates, and we want to hear from you. Drop a comment and let us know what topics you'd like to see us dive into next. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and we'll catch you in on the next one. Bye, everyone.